Welcome to the world according to Boyar, where we bring top investors, best-selling authors, and business leaders to show you the smartest ways to uncover value in the stock market. I'm your host, Jonathan Boyar. Ryan Serhant, founder of Serhant, is one of the most successful and well-known real estate brokers in the world. Over the course of his career, Ryan has sold over $4 billion in real estate. He is also the author of 2 best-selling books and the star of multiple Bravo TV shows, including the 2-time Emmy-nominated $1 Million Listing. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Glad you were able to join us. And normally I use the beginning of the show for a disclaimer, as I'm often talking about a particular stock and want to let the audience know I own it. This time I actually need to disclose 2 things. One, we're going to discuss a development called Jolie, located on 77 Greenwich Street. That property is owned by a public company called Trinity Place Holdings, symbol TPHS, in which my clients and myself own shares in. The other disclaimer, equally important, I have watched every single episode of $1 Million Listing New York, except for the current season, as I plan on binge watching it. And I am so excited to have you on. It's been great following your career, and congrats on, in February, selling the second highest priced single family home in US history at a cool $132 million. Not a bad way to start the year.
Thank you.
First, I just wanted to start with the New York City area. You know the New York City market pretty much better than anyone. Is it still a buyer's market?
I will tell you, it is very rapidly changing to a seller's market. It was a buyer's market for very much the last 4 years. And if I really think about it, it's been a buyer's market since September 2008. There's been a surplus of inventory, a significant amount of options, great negotiating room, and buyers have had their choices. Now, we had 2 to 3 years in 2013, 14, 15-ish, where things were selling faster. And it was a seller's market in certain sections of the city, but definitely not everywhere. But now we are seeing inventory be absorbed faster than I've ever seen in my entire career. And I will tell you, what it really feels like is that this isn't a pent-up demand from COVID, the way you keep hearing about. This is pent-up demand from the Great Recession. This is pent-up demand from people that were going to buy homes or were thinking about buying homes in the future in 2007, who just never did, who might have bought because they needed something. I'm having a baby, I need to move. I'm going to school, I need to move. I'm switching jobs, I need to move. We've done a lot of need sales and moving over the past 12, 13 years, but we haven't done any of those want purchases. Pre-2008, people were buying because they needed to and because they wanted to. They were selling because they needed to sell and because, you know what, I guess I'll sell. I've made a good amount of money on this investment. Great. You haven't seen that in the last 12 years. Most of the sellers I deal with in New York City end up losing money until now. And all of that pent-up demand, especially in a city like New York, where there's a lot of money and there's a lot of access to money, is like popping right now. And I think it's going to take a couple more months to get through the inventory we have. But I think come September, October, we're going to be in a full-blown seller's market in New York, the way the rest of the country has been seeing since last summer.
Speaking of that, is the narrative that besides the New York City area, that everyone is moving to the suburbs permanently, is that an overblown narrative, or is that really factually correct? I mean, the press loves to spin a story.
Yeah, no. If you really look at the numbers and at the data, more people actually ended up coming to the city than leaving the city in the last 14 months, just because there's so much opportunity. It's like, oh, I can actually move to the city now. Looks like there are good deals. And people left, but they left temporarily. Like I left temporarily. And I think the city counted me as someone who left. I came back April 2020. I was here during the riots. I was here going to the office every day. We weren't supposed to, but I was going every single day, walking through the empty streets of Soho. It was pretty nuts. I was walking up the middle of Broadway at like 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. So people are definitely still in New York City. And you know that if you come to the city now, you can't move. Everybody who left temporarily, they all came back and they all brought their cars. And so now all these people have cars who never had cars before, plus the restaurants are all still eating indoors 100%, but Cuomo hasn't taken away the outdoors, so they're all sitting in the outside as well. So there's no place to park. Everyone has a car. Everyone came back to the city in its mass chaos, and no one has anywhere to live. And so they're all looking to buy and sell. It's insane. I've never seen anything like this.
And is it across all price points?
Yes, it is across all price points. Now, listen, it doesn't mean that if you have $1 million condo and you price it at $3 million, it's going to sell. But if you have $1 million condo and you price it at $1.25 million, you might get $1.25 million, or you might at least get somebody to come and make an offer, which was not happening last year.
So your brokerage firm, I believe, is pretty national, or at least in certain areas across the country. You had to pick a market now to invest in with a super long-term time horizon. Where would you be buying now?
In New York?
All across the country.
Oh, my parents, okay, for example, in the last boom, okay, so 2003, they went to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. They went to Vail and they went to Aspen to look for a second home. They thought, you know what, it's going to be great. We're going to live on a ranch. We're going to do this new thing. They sold their house in Massachusetts and they were going to go out there. They lost out on a couple bids. I remember, I was younger, but I remember what it was like. Lost out on a couple bids, ended up settling on this house, beautiful ranch, tons of land in Steamboat Springs. They've been trying to sell that house for the last 5 years. Not a single person will come through. No one. Can't get a single offer, anything, because the secondary housing market is a really, really tough market. When it's hot, it's all people can think about. They just buy. It's like Dogecoin. It's like, oh my God, this is it. When it's not, it's out of sight, out of mind. I'm at work, I'm at school, I need my own place. I'll just go on vacation to Hawaii. Why do I need to take care of a place in Colorado? And then they list it again for the 5th year in a row in May of 2020, and they sold it for the asking price in one day. They had people banging down the door, leaving notes, craziness, because it is a moment in time. So I don't necessarily believe that the secondary housing market will maintain its current pace, because people will eventually go back to work and they go back to the office. It's great that we have this, but it's a difficult market because there's only so many people that can afford to spend millions and millions of dollars on a house that takes you 6 hours to get to. I am very, very, very excited about waterfront property and amenitized property. I think that there are great parts of South Florida that are overvalued, but I think there's great parts of South Florida that have not been touched nearly to the extent that they should be. I'm looking at right now, yes, there's the Miamis and the Palm Beaches of the world, and it's about location. But what about Tampa? What about the other coast where valuations are so much lower? You still get to be in the same state. You still have great schools. There's great opportunity there. I think 77 Greenwich is incredibly undervalued right now. At the prices that we are allowed to sell at, I think people are going to make a significant amount of money. And I remember selling in the financial district during the last crisis. Okay, I was selling 99 John Street in the financial district, 442 apartments. The World Trade Center had not been rebuilt yet. You were watching One World Trade get built floor by floor by floor. Everyone who came in said that the building was so overpriced. This is so stupid. How could you ever convince us to buy here? Look, there's a construction site over here. This is insane. It was dirty. Everyone complained. But the people that we finally got to buy in 5 to 10 years later, most everyone in that building has made at minimum a 30% return, if not doubled their money. And it's just a testament to the value of owning real estate and the value of owning real estate downtown. Like, I can't say for a fact that if you go and you pay a good price today on Central Park, that you are going to make a huge return in 5 to 10 years, because you're paying a premium now, and who knows?
In early 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, you started your own real estate firm, just like you started becoming a real estate agent the day Lehman Brothers collapsed. So why do that? Is it better economics? I mean, I'm sure you could probably have negotiated a pretty good deal with pretty much any major broker house, or was there something else?
Life is short. When I was a little kid, I remember going by a cemetery and my grandfather, who was a very unique guy, asking me, who's in there? And I said, dead people. And he said, no, in there is a writer you'll never know. In there is a basketball player you'll never know. In there is a guitarist you'll never hear. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, yeah, of course we'll never hear them. They're dead. But as I got older and I really thought about it, and then I remembered his personality kind of long after he died, I understood what he meant, in that there are people who have opportunities who don't chase them because they're scary, and they die with them. They could have been something much, much bigger had they just tried. I'd rather regret the things I did than the things I never tried. So I'd rather regret having started a firm and maybe it didn't work out than regretting never having tried it. It's the whole reason I'm in New York. Everyone told me not to come to New York in 2006 with no money, and I wanted to do theater. Like, great, awesome, but you will be destitute and poor. And New York City is a really scary, dangerous city when you don't have money. And that's exactly what it turned out to be. So I needed to figure out how to pay my rent. I did it through hand modeling cell phones and Nespresso capsules and getting my real estate license and doing rentals in Koreatown, the Harlem, Bronx, deep Brooklyn, Queens, stuff like that. And slowly but surely, I became addicted to the business and sort of built it up. And the things that we do now to sell developments, the things that we do now to sell properties are things that I can't do at other firms and wouldn't make sense for me to do there because we do them on our own to the benefit of our clients. And it just makes the most sense to really build a new type of real estate brokerage that people aren't really thinking about yet. And it's exciting. It's incredibly insane and totally nuts that we did it last year, but low inventory. Who else started a real estate company in New York City in 2020? No one.
It's good to be different, and I think it's fantastic. And the current firm, how many brokers do you have?
I think we just passed 60. We started in October.
How do you manage a team like that? I mean, that's got to be really difficult. And how do you get people to drink the Kool-Aid, to go and join you as opposed to going to Element or some other well-known firm?
I mean, as of right now, it's pretty easy. Every other firm is much, much bigger. And so you can go anywhere else and you can just be a number. And when you go to a listing pitch, you're going to have to differentiate why you at this firm are different from everybody else at the same exact firm. You come work with me and I will change your career. We have lead flow that is greater than any other firm out there. There are 4 million people that are subscribed and or followed to the real estate content that we put out. And there are buyers and sellers that come through all day, every day. And so I end up turning away more agents than we do actually hiring them. We probably hire one out of every, 10 to 15 agents we interview. And we also only interview agents that have been in the business for at least 5 years. It's a promise I made to my core team that for our first year in the business, we're only going to bring in superstars, people who knew what they're doing, who just needed to get to that next level, because I can really help people get to that next level. And we grow the business through training. Education is a really big deal for us. We have a whole separate education business. We have a very large online sales course. We have 7,000 agents right now in 109 countries and growing every single day. And then we amplify our brands, our agents, and our properties through media. The same way we were doing at 77 Greenwich, right, at Jolie. We created the brand and we amplified it through video content so that we can get Gen Z to tell their parents that they want to buy this one. And you can't do that with a regular real estate listing.
No, absolutely. And we had Douglas Elliman, Chairman, Howard Lorber on the show. I mean, super smart guy, really successful. And I asked him his views on this, and I'm curious to kind of hear your thoughts. Are there aspects of the brokerage industry that are going to be disruptive? I mean, in a sense, you're disrupting it right now, but do all homes need to be listed by an agent taking a commission? As Jeff Bezos says, your margin is my opportunity.
Until Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk figure out how to get a house to sell itself to another house, there will be a need for real estate salespeople, because a house is not diapers. It's not a lost leader item. A house is not a frying pan. It's not a house in a box either. It is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not multiple millions of dollars. And we have not gotten to the point yet, and I don't know when we will, where buying something as significant of a house is as easy as pointing and clicking. People need recommendations. They need their hands held. And there's a significant amount of costs involved. It's not just the purchase price. You know how many closing costs there are in New York City? New York City taxes you for the honor of allowing you to get a loan in New York City. You want to get a mortgage? You have to pay a New York State mortgage recording tax of almost 2% of your loan amount. You know how fun that conversation is to have with people that are not from New York? They're like, what? Wait a minute. I want to buy there. There are real estate taxes. There's transfer taxes. There's the mansion tax. There's title tax, everything. Now I want to get a loan so I can purchase and spend more money. And New York City is going to tax the loan as well. Yes. And they're going to tax my income and raise income taxes. Yes, they will. And they're going to cut the budget on the police, and they're going to cut the budget on sanitation by $100 million. So there'll be trash in the streets. and people afraid? Yes, all of this makes sense. So what I'm saying is all those conversations come into play when deciding whether or not to buy a home in any city or any town. I think the process will become more streamlined. The amount of documentation, paperwork, things that are needed to make a home sell will become more streamlined. But at the same time, it's not just one company. There's lots of different departments. You're dealing with the city, you're dealing with the town, you're dealing with the bank, you're dealing with the seller, you're dealing with their lender. So like, how do you get all of that onto Amazon? You don't. Will developers be able to sell through a one-stop shop? Possibly. But then how do you differentiate yourself from the rest of the competition? And how impersonal is that? I don't need to have a personal conversation when I'm buying a product on Amazon. I just need to show up in a box. But I also didn't know that I needed that before Amazon showed up. So who knows? I'm excited about where real estate goes from here. And I think the process of buying and selling a home is going to be very, very different in 2030. I think I am very much looking forward to where we're going to be in 9.5 years. It's already the middle of 2021, which means it's going to be 2022 before we know it, which means we got 8 years left to get to the next decade, which is mass craziness to me. But with all the technology that gets invented, there comes more confusion and people aren't really getting smarter. The brains are still there. People are people and they need their handheld. They need to understand what it is they're spending money on and what that process is like. And so I think salespeople will become more educated. That's why we focus so much on education. And I think the process in which we go about marketing homes will change and a few other things.
I want to just in a second talk about 77 Greenwich, but I just had a couple more questions, just my own personal curiosity. Clearly being on $1 million listing and publicity surrounding that helped your career. But there have been a lot of brokers in the show. Most of them have not experienced your level of success. What did you do to leverage the show to get to where you are now? And what do you think separated you from the other brokers who weren't as nearly as successful?
I will squeeze every lemon I can find. I will not leave any stone unturned, and I am relentless. When it comes to working for my clients, that's what people will say about me. I'm just relentless in getting deals done, relentless in anything. If I put my mind to it, I'm just going to go after it because why not? It's like climbing a mountain. You ask people who've climbed Everest, why would you do that? And they say, because it's there. There's the opportunity. And I think there's two different types of people. There are people who will take initiative and take opportunity, and there are people who will do work and do what they're told. It's a very, very fine line. And so I think that when I saw that opportunity, we had the show, I waited one day in 2012 for my phone to ring because I thought, oh, millions of people are watching me sell real estate. Boom, business card to the world. Let's go. Phone's going to ring off the hook. And I stared at that damn phone for an entire day and no one called. Because apparently people don't really pick up the phone and call people that they watch on TV. Like you're not watching the news and you're like, hey, Anderson, Cooper, what's up, buddy? How do you even get that guy's phone number? And so I said, okay, well, I got to make use of this. And what it enabled me to do was open doors that I knocked. So if I knock on the door, I can use the show and the publicity from the show to get people to open and have a conversation with me that they otherwise might not have had. To be able to take on projects like 77 Greenwich and everything else that we do. The publicity that I use from the show and the content that we're able to create helps me open doors that otherwise never would have come to me because I just don't know those people. And I think that I work every single day. I work 7 days a week. I'm up at 4 a.m. My last appointments are typically sometime between 8 and 8:30 p.m. If I have a dinner event, I try to get out by 9:30, but sometimes they go to 10 and dinner events are back right now. And I miss a good Zoom. And I think that our ability to really, really put things out into the atmosphere to create a brand is then what it's all about. And that's what we teach our agents. There's strategy to creating a brand, which is figuring out what your core identity is, creating consistent content around it and putting it out there into the world so people know it, and then shouting every single success you have from the mountaintop because success begets success. And brand recognition and awareness, which is really what your question is reputation. Reputation, if you pull the layer back, is then perception that the world has of you. And then if you pull that back even further, that perception is your core. It's what you believe in yourself. It's your confidence. So if you're confident about being the best real estate agent in the world, and you put that out there to the world, and you create content about it, then the world's perception of you is going to be like, well, okay, they're the best. Look what they're doing. They're super successful. perception. And then that perception is going to turn into what people say about you behind your back, which is your reputation. And that reputation is your personal brand.
And one of the ways you put yourself out in the world is social media. I mean, you're a prolific user. You have unbelievable content. I mean, one, I guess, how many people do you have working for you just solely on social? And what are the best mediums of social media to attract business?
I would say for us, because we're in a visual medium, Instagram is very, very important, followed by YouTube. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world, owned by the people that own the first biggest search engine in the world. So search is life. You search for everything. Anything you don't have, you search for it, whether it's outside, in the park, or it's on your phone. And so we want to put out consistent content over and over. Some of it's terrible, though. Some of it's terrible. Some of it's good. Some of it no one cares about. They don't like, whatever. But you got to keep putting it out. And then we put out content that really works. And that's great. And we put out content I think is amazing that no one cares about. That's annoying. And then we put out content that I think is stupid. Well, whatever. And then everyone loves that. I'm like, I don't understand people. But it's more than anything, it's about being consistent. And I think if there's anything to say about us is that we are consistently consistent. So
Trinity Place Holdings, they have a property, 77 Greenwich Street. And if you look, and you rebranded it to Jolie, if you look at $1 million listing, a whole transaction takes place in about 15 minutes. I'd love to, if you can maybe take me behind the scenes, like how did it come to be where you're now representing this, it's a relatively large building, this whole building, like how did that work?
So when we started the company, the new company, Serhant, we did exactly what I did when I first got into the business, which is no one's going to care that I started my own company unless I make them care. And I'm going to reach out to everybody and just let them know, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's how we're great. Would love to know you if I don't already know you. And so we put a book together, we put a package together, and had it not been for COVID, I would have done this all in person and dropping off, and it would have been a lot. But due to COVID, everything had to be digital. And so I sent emails to every single developer that I know and don't know. And one of the developers we reached out to was Matt and the team over at Trinity. And it wasn't about 77 Greenwich. It was, you guys are developing towers in New York City. I would love to know you. I just started a brand new real estate firm in the middle of a pandemic. I believe in New York City more than anyone. I'm signing a lease for a 15,000 square foot building in Soho. Everyone's calling me crazy because they think New York is dead. I disagree. I would love to meet you to talk about your future projects. And a lot of people responded. One of them was Miriam and Jeff, who work with Matt, and they just wanted to talk about the future. And then they brought up 77 Greenwich, and then we had those conversations. And I've known about the building for a long time. I think more people needed to know about the building. And those conversations led to meeting with Matt. And those conversations led to putting the sales team together, to sending them an agreement, to it being negotiated, to proving to them that we could really, really make a difference in traffic and in deals and in offers and in understanding the story against intense market headwinds, which is what we do. And it's worked out well so far. Hasn't been that long. We kind of only just started. We're cranking deals. There's 90 units. It's 42 stories. It's got amazing amenities. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom apartments, amenities at the top of the building. You got the school, you got the park. And I know the area incredibly well because when I got into the real estate business, I was living at 88 Greenwich, directly across the street. When I got cast on $1 Million Listing, I was living in 88 Greenwich in a little studio apartment they had there, apartment 1213, which had like a little alcove. That's where I put my mattress on the floor. And the minute I got cast, I was like, shoot, I can't be living in here on this little studio. So I took all the money I really didn't have and went and rented a massive 2-bedroom at 20 Pine Street, which is a couple blocks away. And I was selling 99 John Street at the time. So I've lived in most of the buildings in the financial district. I know the area incredibly, incredibly well. I'm a big, big believer in it. I think it's awesome. And I'm just excited to be a part of their team.
And you rebranded it. I'm not sure if they had difficulty or whatnot. It just wasn't selling as well as obviously they would like. That's why they hired you. How did you come up with a new concept? Do you have a whole team that does this? Is this you personally? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. And sorry, I didn't fully answer one of your last questions about social and the team that handles all of that. We think about social all the time. It's a big part of the business now because it's targeted advertising and it's authentic and it's organic. A little bit of it is a push, but our business is made up of a couple different departments. We have the studios team. So Serhant Studios is our in-house kind of film studio and amplification center. And That's 10 people. They create all the content and handle the social, both for me and for the company and for our project. So they don't just focus on me all day. I wish they would, but they've got other things to focus on. So they help with all of that. And coming up with the brand and the story, we have ID Lab, and they are our marketing and innovation hub. And they just sit there all day long and they brainstorm and they think of amazing new ideas. And so we put in front of them, and I said, listen, 77 Greenwich, here's the renderings they have right now. Here's what the building has. Here are the pros. Here are the cons. Come back to me. Let me know what your thoughts are. Hash it out. And we came up with a lot of different ideas, lots of different names, lots of different stories. But we kept coming back to 77 Greenwich being rooted in a very specific location. And there's a lot to the financial district that people, I think, are unaware of. You think office buildings, you think World Trade Center, maybe there's a couple other buildings you think about, but you don't think restaurants. You don't think atmosphere necessarily. You don't think park space. You don't think dogs. And so our head of new development has a dog. And so we said, you know what? We really like the name Jolie. We think the building has been branded previously as kind of masculine, big edges, feels like an office building. We don't want to do that. This is a building that has a lot of 3 and 4 bedrooms. It's amazing for families. It's great for pets. We want to give it a different identity, make it a little bit softer, make it sexy. And people don't necessarily know where 77 Greenwich is. People are like, oh, Greenwich, is that Greenwich Village? Where is that? Oh, is that Battery Park? No, people don't know. And so we wanted to give it a name that kind of gave it a root in a story. And then we made a video where someone, me, lives at 77 Greenwich and has a dog and runs around and follows the dog through a very French financial district and goes to all the French bistros and coffee shops and just has a good time, because when you live at this building, you will have a good time because the investment will be great, but also your life will be great. And we hashed it out with Trinity and went through all the different ideas and options, and they gave us pushback where they wanted to. But I do give them credit for giving us leeway. They're the types of developers who they do what they do and they do it really well. And they expect to hire people who are really good at what they do and give them the runway to do what they do well. And they've done that for us. And it's been very rewarding. And I think they're happy so far.
So what's success for you on that property?
Selling out and beating expectations. Our blended price per square foot there is a little bit over $2,000 a foot. When you look at kind of total gross sellout, if we can achieve that in the next 12, 18 months, that would be really, really great. It's 90 apartments, but there are 90 large apartments in a building that is still heavily under construction, although it's getting there. We'll be able to start closing probably some of the smaller units in the next couple months, closing all the bigger ones by the end of the year. And that's pretty great. They have an amazing construction team that's working very, 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 very fast. They do great, great work. And as the building gets more complete, people will be able to move in. But right now, what we're seeing a lot of for all of our projects that we're selling is the people who are purchasing now are people who are coming back to New York City and they need a place to live now. They either sold their place last year or they gave up their rental and now they're coming back and saying, okay, well, can I move in on June 1st? I'm like, June 1st is next week. That's impossible. Like, all right, well, then I got to do something else. Like, okay. So once we're able to say you can close in 60 to 90 days, that'll be a huge, huge difference for us.
What's next for you? Obviously, I mean, you have a lot on your plate, but you've clearly built a great brand. I mean, you're known for real estate, but I imagine that's going to translate to other things as well. Like, where do you see yourself 5, 10 years from now?
I'm very focused on 2030.
9 years from now.
But I say that because it's like, I distinctly remember 2010. 2010 was the year for me when I finally said, okay, this real estate thing isn't just here to pay rent. I'm going to do this. I think I can do this. I don't know that many people, but I think I can teach myself how to sell real estate high end in this crazy city that I'm not from. And I think I can figure it out. And then I got cast on $1 Million Listing and I started filming at the end of that year. But that doesn't feel that long ago, 2010. And now it's 2021. So 10 years went by real fast, let alone 11 years. And so 2030 is going to be here before I know it. So I'm very focused on myself in 2030. Where is he? What's he doing? Because I'm going to be that guy before I know it. Like, we're all going to be ourselves in 2030. It's going to be here before we know it. And so what am I doing today to set up his life so that he's having the greatest year of his life? And my biggest deal, I haven't even done it yet. I've done big deals, but I haven't done the biggest one yet because I haven't even met that guy yet or her yet. That's exciting for me. And so I'm hoping to build the greatest and largest real estate firm in the history of the known universe. And I'm figuring out how I'm going to do it. And we are 7 months in. So touch base with me in a couple years, and our future selves will see each other in 2030. And I hope I was right.
Well, I look forward to doing that in 2030, but hopefully can meet you in person before that. I want to thank you for joining me on The World According to Boyar. It was great having you, and I look forward to watching the latest season of $1 Million Listings, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you, man. Thanks so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the show. To be sure you never miss another World According to Boyar episode, please follow us on Twitter @BoyarValue. Until next time.